is called to order at 1 minute past 6 on Tuesday, January 14. Notice is hereby given. Let's read this one. Public hearing is now called to order at 1 minute past 6 on Tuesday, January 14. This hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 131, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth. An act relative to the protection of the wetlands is most recently amended. Notice of the time and place of this hearing was published in the Advocate on January 9 of 2020. It's also posted in the town clerk's office. This is being recorded for broadcast and maybe even going out live. Persons wishing to be heard will be called in the following order. We have our minutes for approval from the December 23rd meeting. I know I read those and sent my non-comments back to Joanne because there's nothing to change. If anybody else has any comments, if not, I'll accept the motion.
Be approved.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Meeting mail. Do we have meeting mail, Mary?
No.
Okay. There's nothing on the discussion agenda. Old business, we have an NOI from the town of Acushnet, DPW. Huh?
I have it under. Oh wait, I'm looking at something.
It is old business.
Oh, I'm right. You are correct. I was looking at something that I probably didn't say one, and I didn't.
So the town of Acushnet, DPW, SC 001-0541. A notice of intent was filed by the town of Acushnet, DPW, for property located on Hamlin Street, map 23 and 24, lots 22, 26, 26A, and 18 through 26, 23A, 23C, 23D, 25A through C. The applicant proposes to dig a trench and lay a pipe with catch basins and manholes to relieve drainage issues on Hamlin Street within the 100-foot buffer zone for bordering vegetated wetland. The applicant is represented by Bob Rogers of JF Engineering Incorporated. Plan name is Town of Acushnet DPW Street Improvements. Project Hamlin Street, dated October 24, 2019. I know this was continued from the last meeting. Are we discussing this one today?
No, they've already continued
Okay. 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Okay, okay, motion to continue to the
Motion to continue.
January 28 meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. To new business, NOI, Alan Clapp, Acushnet Solar, LLC, 1050 Main Street, SE 001-0543. Notice of intent was filed by Alan Clapp, Acushnet Solar, LLC, for property located at 1050 Main Street, map 7, lots 24 and 24B. The applicant proposes to construct a large-scale solar project on a portion of the 1050 Main Street property. The solar panel system will be located in the central upland portion of the site with driveway access onto Main Street within the 100-foot buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland. The applicant is represented by Stephen Joseph of SciTech Incorporated. Plan name is Large Scale Solar Energy System in Acushnet, Mass, dated October 5, 2019. Wherever you are, the floor is yours.
Good evening. For the record, Steve Gioso with SciTech Engineering. With me tonight is Alan Clapp, the applicant for this project with Acushnet Solar. As was read into the record, this is a proposed solar project on the 1050 Main Street property. So the cover sheet shows the general locus condition. Here's Main Street, running and bordering the site on the western side. We're just north of Leonard Street over here, and south of Clem's Way, the mobile home park located to the north of the project. Existing conditions, we'll start there. For the property consists of wooded area to the far east end of the site. There's actually a tree line back several thousand feet off Main Street. Again, orientation north to the top of the drawing. Main Street here, bordering the site on the west. So there's a wooded area to the north, but we're not going anywhere near that. The bulk of the site is open field running through the site. There's the single-family residence in the front, garage, and the barn structures close to Main Street. And from a resource area standpoint, we've actually delineated 3 separate wetland areas. An area that extends onto the property on the north boundary line, about midway between the front and the back of the property. We have a second wetlands on the south side of the property, and on the far east side, we've delineated a wetland in this area here, which would extend in an easterly direction away from the proposed activities. This heavier line represents the 100-foot buffer zone from these 3 delineated resource areas, and property is pretty well defined. You've got stone walls on both sides of the property for the most part, and again, this is primarily an open field area, a few freestanding trees here near the front, but for the most part a cleared site. The proposal before you this evening is for a solar project. This particular plan depicts the proposed activities for the site. Same orientation and actually the same scale on the plans, where you see Main Street, the wetland area, and the far easterly wetland area, and the 100-foot buffer zone lines. So the first thing I'd like to highlight is we've, again, tried to compress the site as much as possible, get the maximum separation to the resource areas. You can see here, we're actually at the closest point, maybe about 50 feet to the wetlands with the fence line for the solar, and the green represents the fenced-in area for the solar. But we're primarily in the outer edge of the buffer zone in this area here. We're just clipping the buffer zone on the far eastern end of the site with a piece of the turnaround for their access service drive and a little bit of our fencing around the system here. The one spot where we do get close to the wetlands is where we have some stormwater management being proposed, and that's on the north side of the property. But I think it's important to note, you can see the solar panel layout. All of the panels are outside the 100-foot buffer zone for the resource area. All the equipment and equipment pads, which are located here on the property, again, outside the 100-foot buffer. These are probably about 200 feet from the resource area. And we've proposed a access drive coming in on the south side of the property. It'll enter the gated portion of the site. This is about 550 feet from Main Street. So we're really quite a ways back on the property, beyond the crest in the hill, just as it starts coming back into the site. So that's where the beginning of the system would occur, and we have, again, a 7-foot fence going around the entire project that's required by the regulations, and it has a slight elevation at the base, so we have the bottom of the fence about 6 inches off the ground. That allowed some movement of critters underneath and not provide a blanket obstruction to movement through the site for any wildlife that does want to migrate from one wetland system to the other. We find that that's pretty common in these types of installations. We do have evergreen plantings that we're proposing on the Main Street side of the site. And again, the access comes in, it'll be a gravel access drive with a small paved apron right at the entry point. Again, most of this activity outside the buffer zone areas. Within the buffer zone and the solar project, we have the fencing that would surround the system. So this piece of fencing, this remains as a grassed area as it exists today, with the access drive coming in, the access drive just clipping into the buffer zone here, and then outside the buffer zone. I think the one thing on these types of projects we don't need to do, especially on a site like this, we're not doing a lot of grade changes, so there's not a lot of earth movement involved. Our biggest earth movement is in our stormwater management system. We're creating a small earthen berm on this edge here. The natural topography in this area comes down. There's a piece of the drainage that comes this way. We're collecting it. We've shaded the extent of what would potentially hold water at any given time for a rainstorm. It's only about 18 inches deep. We've kept it fairly shallow and worked with the natural topography here. Because of that natural flow, the water can just run into this as it's draining from the fields. In this area, there's a small outlet structure in this location, and then a discharge. The one thing about the solar projects, we're not adding a lot of impervious surface. The ground surface remains as is. The rainwater would hit the panels, drop, and filter into the ground where it falls, or if you have a big event and you do have runoff, it would travel down to either a controlled area here, and we have the basin here and in no other locations because this is the area that's picking up the gravel drive. This is draining in this area. So this is where we're seeing a change in drainage flow. Same thing with the equipment pad area. So the only real impervious surface being created is the equipment pad, really a de minimis amount for a site of this size, and everything else remains as a vegetated surface, and then the access way. All of the cabling is underground for the project, so all the wiring from the panels go underground, route to the equipment pad area here, and then we then go in an overhead fashion to the interconnection point on Main Street. Again, grading changes. The detention area, a little bit of this area here where the slope was a little too steep, so we wanted to flatten the grade out in this area a little bit for the access drive. A little bit of grading in this area for the access drive and this corner to create a little plateau for the equipment pads. Other than that, there are no grade changes being proposed all through this area of the site. So the majority of the site, it's really just installing the screws for these racking systems so that we can support the panels and install the panels. And then what we'll do is reseed the site when we're done to stabilize any of the disturbance from the construction activities. We do have erosion control fencing shown on the plan. We're running that erosion control again primarily in the areas where we have the earthwork changes and the potential for migration of silt or sediments into the adjacent wetland system. So we do have that depicted on the plan, and we do have it also on this side here, again to protect this wetland area, all the way down to Main Street, so there'll be erosion control during the construction process all along this edge. Even though we're not anticipating major earth changes, there will be some disruption of the ground surface with the equipment coming in there to put the racking posts in the ground and trenching for the electrical conduit system. So this would give us protection of the resource areas here. In this location, it's kind of unusual, but the wetlands are actually up gradient of this portion of the field area. So again, this is draining generally in this direction here, so again, no erosion control on the eastern side of the project. That's pretty much it. It's fairly straightforward, low impact, no demand on services. Once the system is constructed, you'll see maintenance people coming out here from time to time. So no heavy traffic. It's not like this is a residential development where you're going to see nitrogen being added to the ground with septic systems or demands on water or traffic generation. It's really a low intensity project once the construction is completed. I think this particular project, we're probably looking at a 3-month construction window, 4 months?
3 to 4.
Yeah.
And then you making sure all the vegetation is.
Yeah, then
square
stabilization after that.
after that.
So fairly straightforward, and again, we think we're buffered from the adjacent properties, the adjacent wetlands, and also from the public way with the configuration we've come up with here.
Talk a little bit more about the trenching for the conduits for the wiring. How deep is that going to get?
You're usually down only about 3 feet, 2 to 3 feet, just enough to get safe coverage over it, so there's not any incidental damage to the wiring after it's installed. But it's a couple of feet down.
In all in protected tubing there, is that right?
It's in conduit, yes. The one unique thing here is the landowner intends to grade sheet throughout the project, I guess, to help with the maintenance of it. I don't know if that will come to fruition, but that's what they tell me the intention is.
Interesting, there's nothing there now.
No, I'm not sure where that's
I don't know
coming
why
from. but-
they're coming up with that idea. There's
but-
never been any sheep, I've been there
Yeah.
for many years, and I've never seen sheep there. Interesting.
Well,
For
they try to.
the record, would you tell us your name and where you live?
My name's Irene Pyers, and I live at 1020 Main Street,
Okay.
which I abut that property,
You did, good.
yes. And I just found out about this last week. The letter came in the mail, torn, shriveled. The mailman dropped it off. That's how I found out about it.
Say about that. There's no service.
We'll talk to the
So that
postmaster.
wasn't much notice, was it?
Mary, do you have any technical questions?
How many megawatts is it?
I think it's 1.3.
1.3 megawatts DC. It's just under 1 megawatt AC.
Okay, and what are you gonna use for evergreens?
I'm sorry.
Evergreens.
Evergreens for screening?
On your
We haven't,
west side there.
we haven't specified those just yet. I think it's safe to say not arborvitae's is
Yay.
one of our design principles as a company. Spruce and some pines, but not tall growing trees. We're trying to get the dwarf-like material, but it will be evergreens. Roughly in the 6-foot height of planting, initially planting.
How about ground cover? What are you gonna use for ground cover?
There is a seed mix specified on the plans, I believe. It's one that the applicant has used in other installations. And it gives the breakdown of the different types of grass seeds that are in this particular mix, but it's a low-growth seed, specifically for solar farms, because again of the shading of the panels. You want something that's shade tolerant. Going to get you a dense growth but not grow to a great height. So there's actually a very specific seed mix and an application rate, 75 pounds an acre, so that we can reestablish a cover that's going to be easily maintained for this type of facility.
Would it be possible to throw something in for the pollinators? Clover maybe?
I was
or
gonna say,
something along
clover
those
is, that's something we're moving towards, is trying to add more pollinators in clover across the board. Actually, 4 or 5 years ago, we were using primarily clover, and it just didn't generate quick enough, germinate. And so now we're just adding a small percentage, 10-20% of clover seed across the whole place. And in certain areas around the exterior of the modules, it's our intent, and again, this plan doesn't reflect that, is to add some pollinator seeds to this. And it's kind of more of a culture that we're trying to get on all our projects, but kind of caught midstream. We're not quite there yet with all the vendors and all the pieces that it takes to kind of make a specific presentation that here's what we're doing with pollinators and here's how we're going to promote that and maintain it and so forth. But we'll take some baby steps for sure at this right away with clover and the pollinator mix on the sides around the fenced area.
Any questions or comments from commission members?
So all your stormwater collection is going to be done naturally through the grid? There'll be no additional,
No piping, no culverts on the site, no, everything is natural flow, and which is why we didn't create an upgradient berm to the basin. It allows the water to just drain in. There'll be a 3-to-1 upgradient slope here, so stable. This will be seeded as well, and then a very shallow berm here, only a couple of feet high. Again, we kept it broad and a little bigger square footage, but shallower in depth. It drains. System's designed to drain within 72 hours, so it's not holding water long periods of time. So when there are big storm events, you'll see a minor amount of water coming in. And I'm going to probably guess that in most storms, your day-to-day storms, you won't even see water puddling in here. It's really more the 10 to 100-year event that you'd actually see some water pocketing in there of any substance. And the maximum depth is less than 1.5 feet.
Can I just,
Yeah, I was going to turn to the audience, please.
I'm not sure exactly where that's going to be, but I don't know if you've noticed, right, on the property just before Main Street, there's always flooding there. There was just recently, maybe, I want to say within the last week, the water.
Yeah, I talked to, I think, one of your
Every
neighbors.
day, I know because I live right there, and I mean, we're talking a lot of water. It goes down to my property as well. So are you going to keep that water away? Or
Yeah.
is that going to be an additional problem?
No, that's why, again, we've kept this over the crest of the hill, so the break in the slope is here. So this does drain down to you. Naturally, it's a pretty good slope coming down to that corner. That's gonna continue going down to that corner. But we're keeping our water from the panel area. And really, you're not gonna see anything in terms of change in drainage in most of this, because this is already open field. A lot of times we'll do these projects, and they go into wooded areas, and we're changing from woods to grass. That increases the amount of runoff. Because of the way these systems are designed, where these are not impervious surfaces, the water can sheet right off, drop, and we're not changing the natural drainage pattern. So where the water goes today, that's where it's gonna go when we're done, so there's no change in drainage pattern. But I did speak with one of your neighbors, a gentleman who lives across the street, who mentioned the same thing about drainage along the Main Street is somewhat of an ongoing issue, I guess. So he did mention that.
I live at 990 Main Street near Gonzalez, and that property, the water table is 5 feet below level. So anything you're mentioning, that doing trenches to put the electrical cables in at 3 feet, the water table is 5 feet, and that on most of those properties right there.
I believe that. Yeah, we did a number of test pits through the property before we did the design. But our trenches are gonna go down 2 feet, roughly 2 to 3 feet. And then it's just gonna get backfilled with dirt, and it'll be no change in what we're doing. So it's not uncommon for electric, even in this case, it won't be the case, but in some projects, the conduits can be set within the water table. That does happen in some sites. We actually have a project we're working on in Westport now where the conduit's going through a wetland to connect two portions of a solar project. And they're actually gonna tunnel under the wetland. I'm not sure how the economics work on that, but anyhow, so again, it's not uncommon for the cabling to be below the water table, but in this case, that won't be a situation we have to face.
Yeah, one of the things they can't do is increase the amount of drainage onto neighboring properties, which is why they have all of this. And if it doesn't work, then let us know about it.
But that's always been a problem, the
Right.
flooding there.
Well,
So
what,
it's ju- you mean just
what
gonna
they,
stay, so it's
what
gonna-
they, right, well, what they can't do is add to it. And in terms of what happens on Main Street, that's irrespective of this project. It's more of a DPW issue, I suppose. But what this can't do is add to it.
Not supposed to.
Mhm.
It isn't supposed to, correct, correct.
But when you're draining from a glass panel straight down, the bedding underneath, the dirt, the loam, the sand, everything gets mixed in. As the dirt beats on the, because it drops, and there's no gutters, no nothing there.
Right,
So
right.
that's gonna drop onto the ground.
It's gonna-
So that's gonna cause
So
erosion
it
of.
should go back to the natural drainage and then that way.
Yeah, again, what you're talking about is the length of the panel is 6 feet?
It's about 6 feet.
So you're taking 6 feet, the water is dropping from the sky, it's dropping down, and it's just dropping on that
Yeah.
panel, sheeting off and dropping in, and in between the panels is a gap. So you're not dealing with large sheets, it's not like your roof runoff, which is a little bit different type of runoff, because you're getting a much broader sheet focused down your downspouts into one little spot. That's not what happens here. And again, we've got a lot of experience with these types of systems, with the spacing between the panels, all of that's been taken into account to make sure. And when we model the drainage, we look at what is the ground cover, how does the soils allow some absorption in the beginning of the storm, and then how does, when you get the excess water, where does it go? And we do a modeling in the computer for existing and proposed conditions to make sure that the end result is a balance, as the chairman indicated, that there's not an increase, that it's a balance between existing and proposed conditions. And so we've done that, and that's why, because we have a little bit more significant change in the heart of the site, it's what drove us to design and allocate space for stormwater management in that area. Because it's kind of like a bowl that drops and the water kind of comes down and wants to get in this direction here. So that's why we
So you're
placed
kind
that.
of forcing the water into that area.
That's correct, yeah, that's right.
Plus, I'll add, our company is a full-service solar company. I'm not sure what type of applicants you've had in the past, but we do the front-end permitting, but we have in-house construction managers and oversee all that on a daily basis. And we own and operate these ourselves. We have internal asset management folks on the financial side, but we have our own maintenance crew as well. And so they're scheduled to go out to every site at least 3 times a year, beginning and end of the growing seasons and one time during the middle. It's monitored 24/7. If something happens electronically, they'll see it, and somebody will go there. But they're trained to look for those types of things. If something is eroding, they should catch that and repair that. That's part of their normal procedure. In our world, we want to keep the panels clean and free from trees growing too tall and shading and things, but they're there to maintain the property as well and make sure all the vegetation is, grown.
Where else are you locally?
We're in Dartmouth with 3 projects there.
Yep.
On Hicksville Road, there's 6 megawatts, there's 2 phases of 6 megawatts.
That's a big project, and, it's been going on. We did it in 2 phases, as Alan indicated, and I think if you check with...
right up by the church.
No, you can't see this particular project. You're thinking of the one that you can see on Hicksville Road,
Well, you can't see it too good anymore.
No, but that was a big controversy on that particular site because of the visibility, but, no, they're embedded in the middle of the woods. It's a 100-acre site, that they're putting the system in. The first phase has been running for a couple of years now.
2 or 3 years.
And again, we've worked very closely with Mike O'Reilly and Dartmouth Conservation, and we had to get orders of conditions there. That particular site, we actually had wetland alteration. We had our conduit system went through an extensive wetland system in that case. Again, no problems, and the commission has been very happy with the progress that Alan's group has made on that particular site. A lot more intense in the drainage on that site than this one, because it started as a wooded site.
Have you been in touch with Eversource?
Oh, yes.
So the likelihood of being able to look after them is pretty high.
It is. It's not 100%, but I'd say it's in the 90% range. They're finalizing their cost estimates for the improvements that have to come forward with us. But at the moment, it looks pretty good.
A couple of years ago, we permitted, I don't know, 5 or 6, I think, solar fields, and 2 of them are online. You know.
Yeah, we, quite frankly, you may remember 3 or 4 years ago, we actually started just to come in and meet with folks, and I think we did site walk with some people out here as well. But we got caught up with Eversource, and there was an ongoing cluster study. Cluster study is a special outside consultant study by Eversource that lasts about a year-ish. We were behind one. We were in the second one, so we basically had to wait 3 years for that all to pass through, and we've gotten the results last fall, and they're reasonable. They're not 100% finalized, but they're reasonable. We're pretty sure we're going to get there. But yes, you're right. Eversource is a problem.
They
Quite a big
really
problem.
held up a lot of projects.
There's a lot going on.
You here for this too? Did you have any questions on this?
No, I'm fine, I'm between
You're
the
north.
park, I'm 1052 Main.
Oh, well, so you're right there. Okay. Other questions, concerns, or we
What
can...
kind of material are the panels made out of?
They're enclosed in tempered glass and aluminum frames. I think the important part might be that there are no hazardous materials that we use. I'll have to add, I just learned actually this past week, there's a very slight amount of lead used in some solder that shows up, but everything else was non-detectable as far as contamination. And support that. There's copper wiring in the ground, but the modules themselves are silver-bearing glass and aluminum framing. And then, again, all encased in tempered glass like the windshield in the car.
Yeah, but which is breakable.
It does, though I think maybe the point might be it's not water soluble. I mean, all the parts are like glass and they don't mix with water. I don't know if that's where you're going with it, if you're
No,
worried about
I just
wells
went
and
and
things.
looked at a couple of 3 materials that they say that the cells are made out of. And those 3 are not the best materials. One is COPD, and one is CDTE, and the other one is also a copper Indian.
Yeah.
Not that correct.
I think cadmium telluride is one I recognize out of the 3, but we certify that we cannot use hazardous materials in modules in these cases. Except for that minor piece of lead that, because I asked for the testing from these manufacturers for us, and we can submit that to the board as part of the application.
It's a good idea.
Whether it's your board or planning, I'm not sure who will take it, but we have it and readily share that.
That was one of my concerns.
Sure, absolutely.
Then that field, I've been there since 1991, that field holds a lot of deer, rabbits, rabbits I don't see, they can go underneath. But the deers and fox and certain animals like that, they're not gonna be able to, with the panels there.
No, so something go around, different routes.
You're gonna be putting a fence all around, right?
Correct.
So they can't actually go in any of that property.
No, they would have to traverse the fencing. Yeah, absolutely.
How tall is the fence, 6 foot?
So,
7 foot.
Seven.
Actually 7 and 6, right, but it's
Which
raised.
would be a can jump
But
over.
it actually could.
They can,
6 inches under the
sadly.
There is a gap below the ground this as well.
So rather to get under it.
Is there a website they may be able to refer to for some further research if they want to research our company?
Our,
Do you have a website that
our
you can
company,
mention to them?
yes, it's nexamp.com. And tells all about our company. We're roughly 10 years old. Based in Boston initially. We've grown organically from 2 veterans that founded our company. We've grown to a couple hundred folks, and we're in Massachusetts primarily. It's about 100 megawatts that we've developed in the
Is
state
the
of
company
Massachusetts.
originally from Delaware?
No, it's probably the LLC is
Originally from there?
registered there, but
Okay.
we're physically located in Boston, and we have an office in Rhode Island and in New York, working in mostly New England centric. That's where we are.
What's your website name again?
Nexamp, Nexamp as in Paul.com.
Some people registering their yachts in Delaware.
Well, we also have, and this will be a candidate for that, is we have a community solar program. And essentially, we're looking for is the residents to acquire a discount from these projects that we have. And I'm not sure exactly what that will be. It's a timing thing. It'll be between 10 and 15% off. And it's simply a contract that you sign. There's no financial qualifications. There's no restrictions to come in and go out. You sell the property, you get out. No penalties like
How
that.
long does the panels last?
30 years, roughly. 25 to 40 is an average.
Usually they warranty for 25.
25 is the warranty.
And then
Yeah.
what happens to them?
They would be recycled at the use if they weren't producing enough power.
Is it the owner or responsible, or is it the company that's responsible to remove?
We're responsible. We will be having a decommissioning, probably a bond posted with the planning board at the town, and we're also responsible to the landowner by contract to remove everything when we're through, return it back to its original condition.
Okay.
Just one more.
Yeah, please.
In order to get to the solar panel, so what's the route?
She missed the visual.
I know, I'm sorry.
Okay, so the entrance is coming up
My big head's probably
from,
no-
from Maine, comes into the site. There'll be a service drive that comes through. This is gravel, comes here. There'll be a gate for continuing access through here. This is for us and for the landowner to be able to access the property. We have another gate located here for access, and there'll be a gate at this location here. Usually what happens is when we have the gates, because the fire department wants to have emergency access, we'll have a Knox box, something where they can have access to the facility in the case of an emergency or fire. They will still have emergency access capability into the site. But there'll be, in this site, 3 principal points of access here. One here for, again, this was set, I think for the farmer in that location.
Oh, okay.
And then here at the far end of the site here, just so there's long-term access to this area of the site.
That's right against my wall.
Yeah,
So
we're,
just
we're,
want-
yeah, we're
So
off,
is there going to be, you're gonna open it up, you know, what, exactly how you're gonna get over there? You're gonna build a little road?
it'll be a gravel
Because
drive.
usually, you know,
It'll be a gravel drive with,
but
Right
they'll
at
be
the str-
passing right past my wall. There's a stone wall.
yes, you have,
right
yeah, you
there.
have there's a nice stone wall that you've built
Yes, that's
here in
my-
the front, and then
Sure.
My
comes up,
husband
comes
built
up
that,
this
yes.
side here, it's beautiful, nicely done.
And it's not a very high wall, so I'm
Right,
gonna be
it's a-
able to see everybody coming through or cars coming through.
Well, again, keep in mind, once the construction is completed, you may see a vehicle a week coming out to this facility, if that, and there may
Oh,
be,
less than,
less than that.
3 to 4 times a year that we would visit.
So unless there's a maintenance question, you know, that as their signals come in and they're monitoring the production, something looks like it needs some attention, they'll send the maintenance personnel. They'll come out in a small truck. It's not like there's heavy equipment coming in and out of here. You won't see anybody here 99% of the time, once this is built. I mean, again, that 3 or 4 month construction window, yes, there'll be activity. But after that, it's gonna be as, like a field. You're really not gonna notice it.
So I'm gonna move this along then, so I'll obtain a motion for a positive order of conditions for this project as presented.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? It's unanimous, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Merrily, on to agent updates. Thank you both.
Can I just say something? So that's it, this is a done deal, we have no other.
In terms of wetlands, no, if you have other issues that planning or somebody else might be able to help you with, then you can chat with them.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Could be
it's
another
not,
meeting.
that just, I want to, what is the next step?
There's another meeting next Thursday?
This Thursday is an informational meeting before the planning board.
Right, I'm sorry.
And I think they just accept the plans and there's, I'm not even sure.
They'll set a public hearing at that point.
Right.
So what they're gonna do Thursday is they're gonna accept our package of information. We've got a box of all the plans, all these plans you see here. Planning board's gonna get those. We've made an initial filing to get on their agenda. They'll have us on the agenda Thursday. Then they will set the public hearing, at which point you'll get a legal notice, just like you got that letter. Hopefully the mail doesn't mess it up on you.
Exactly.
And then there'll be a meeting with the planning board, and they get into a lot of the nuts and bolts of the operation, so I think it's a broader review than the commission's review.
Didn't that come registered mail though?
The mailman dropped it off.
Did you usually have to sign?
Merrily.
Yeah.
I don't know, I know usually they'll send you a
can
letter,
continue to
and you have
always-
to pick it up at the post office, but no, I wasn't home, my husband picked it up, and this is how it came.
Okay. First thing I have for you guys
Thank you.
is
Thanks.
the Southeastern Massachusetts Land Trust Convocation. It's coming up February 1st.
This is the annual?
It
This
is.
is, yeah, it's a half-day conference that the coalition puts on with a bunch of land trusts, lands.
I've been to it before,
land
it's pretty
trusts.
good. I'll be out of town, so. But it's a good morning thing, you get to learn a little bit about what's going on with land trust work,
Yeah,
land preservation.
It's
Is
pretty
this
good.
strictly revolving around the Acushnet or other?
No, it's
Just the region.
No, it's the whole region.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting if you, if you have the time, it's free. And it's right down, just over the bridge in Bourne. Usually they have it at the
It
hotel.
used to be it used to be Trowbridge Tavern as well.
Oh, actually,
I-
this is
I
Upper
forget the
Cape
name of
Technical
the
High
hotel.
School.
Okay. we're up the
Still,
road.
yeah, not that
It's
far
right
over the bridge.
Yeah, up the Cape's right in the gallow.
Yeah, no, they're past the ice skating rink, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I just wanted you to have that because they sent it to me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Millie.
Okay, the other things are, the violations that we looked at.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first one?
Sorry.
Marion.
Yeah.
123 Perry Hill.
Oh, that's right, yeah, he wouldn't let us on. So, I'm working on getting that complaint.
What is the next
in
step, Mary?
writing.
I know that, I didn't really.
Well, what he said
So
was.
we went on there, we
give
weren't
me
able
the
to get
complaints,
to.
And I will give it to my lawyer, is what he said. So,
Oh.
Sign on the bottom.
so that's what I'll do.
So those complaints were mailed to you?
No, that complaint came in-house.
Oh.
That came from somebody.
That was internal.
in town, who had been out there, but, he's feeling like we're all ganging up on it, so, but I will
It's
do
part of the
that,
investigation, right?
I'll get the complaint to him and he can give it to his lawyer, and, if he decides he wants to let us on, that's fine. In the meantime, I am concerned about effluent, about what comes off of that composting operation, because Tinker Pond is fairly clean now. It doesn't have the same algae and weed problems that the reservoir does yet. But it can, if we, these things are really high nitrogen apparently. So if we flood Tinker Pond, which is what will happen if we just let that stuff go, then we'll end up having big algal blooms.
Right.
Pond,
pattern
which
of
pond?
Tinkle. It goes,
Okay.
There must be
water
one
from
down.
there goes across Russ Du Bois' property and that way. So, yes.
I
All the way to the other side of Acushnet? Well, to the
That
ways.
corner,
right,
the
yeah.
amount of places there,
Yeah.
yeah. So maybe I'll try to get some testing done there, you know, and see if we can go at it from that direction.
Mm-hmm.
you
That's
know.
a good idea.
I'll work with the Board of Health and see if we can. I mean, individual tests are not all that expensive, so I'm sure we can
What do you
figure
mean
it out.
about the reservoir?
The reservoir, your reservoir, yeah, it's covered with weeds, have you noticed?
Oh, yeah, I know that,
Yeah.
but no, like.
Yeah.
no nitrogen or-
Well, you can't see it, but that's what's causing the weeds, is the nitrogen.
It's feeding off of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when did I go for that?
The algae dies, goes to the bottom of the pond, makes nice soil for them to live in.
Right, right.
Yeah, but as it decomposes, it
Yeah.
uses up the oxygen.
Kills all the fish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, so I'll work on that and I'm open for other suggestions as far as getting in there goes,
Right.
you know.
Well, hopefully you get
I think
the
we're limited
complaint
to-
in print.
Yeah,
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 yeah, because I see your concern, is if anything, put up something around wherever the composting is happening to
Yeah,
try to
since
prevent
that's
the
higher,
leaching.
and that's gonna go.
Yeah, I mean, he was
Down to
at the
that.
edge of at the publicly accessible edge of the property, when
Right,
what's
there was-
going on where you can't see
we
anything.
couldn't really see what was going on, but there should be, he should have something absorbing that stuff
Mm-hmm.
into the ground rather than into the, you know, into the streams and.
He claimed to have a 4-foot berm around everything. But there was a lot of roadways in there, I really couldn't see much.
No, you can't.
Yeah, no, I couldn't see much either, so that's,
Well, this
you
says
know.
his right to farm, so what this, I don't know, it depends if he's putting in foot, and just because he has that issue, it doesn't mean he can't like.
If he's a farmer, he has a lot of freedom from us, but he can't fill. And that's what the complaint was that he was filling in wetlands,
Mhm.
you know? So, and that's just not allowed
Mhm.
for anybody, you know? So it would be nice to get in there if that's what he's doing and get him to stop doing it, but in the meantime, we can go at it the other way, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
See how that goes.
How long does that take, usually that process?
Well, the
It
actual
depends.
testing doesn't take that
Well,
long.
as far as getting the complaint to him, to get to his lawyer, to get back to us.
Oh, that'll take weeks, I'm sure. You know, it just depends on how he feels about it, you know what I mean? His
In the meantime, you
lawyer
want,
could
you're
get
saying you
right
want to
back
get
him.
in there sooner, so during this process, there's no
Right,
continuous overflow.
Right, the sooner the better if he's actually filling, because we don't want that to hang around forever. But if, you know, if you add fill, you can subtract fill, so, you know,
Mhm.
it's doable,
Yes.
even if it takes a while. you know.
Which brings us to the next complaint.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next complaint, those are your pictures.
Well, they're ours.
And they came out really good. He came into the office, what was that, yesterday, right? And said that it is not him, it is his son who is the landscaper, who has the trucks and is bringing back the brush. He claims that he hasn't actually cut any trees down in a while, but he was gonna come tonight,
Hmm,
and I don't see him.
okay.
So,
How long has he been at this address? Or his son, I guess?
how long has he lived there?
Well, how is the property, has it been evolved? Did it evolve into this,
Oh,
or?
I don't know. He's had the water down there with the ducks and stuff for as long as I've been here. But as far as all that brush goes and the chips and stuff, I think some of that is new.
What about the water flow stoppage there, that spring?
I think he's been doing that for quite some time,
Yeah.
because he likes to keep those ducks
Right.
and geese or whatever birds he's keeping. I guess he's got some exotic birds in the back too. Remember she said she didn't want us to go in the backyard? I guess he's got some other animals and stuff back there.
Ostriches?
No, small stuff.
In cages, I don't know what they were. Maybe peacocks. Yeah, I don't know, I didn't hear any peacocks
So
actually,
I
but
can hear those stupid
you,
things.
you do, you hear them?
I can hear something.
Hmm.
You live near
Peafowl,
there?
yeah, next street.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
but the fact that he's built up some berms and boarded off water flow and not come to us for permission, and we wouldn't give them permission to do that anyway.
Right,
So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that really should be undone.
right,
Because what precedent do we have to stop other people from doing it?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, is, you want me to just send a letter that's with an application that says, apply to do this? And then, once he gets in here, you guys can decide what he can do and what he can't do,
Yeah,
Or what he has done,
what he
I
has to.
guess.
I mean, I can understand
Alright.
he's it's cute and all that to have, have his little setup back there, but doesn't mean you can stop the water flow.
The natural water.
Yeah. At least not top of, I suppose.
All right, so I'll send him an application and ask him to come in and talk to you guys.
Okay.
Well,
All
we
right.
might wanna go back out there too after he comes in.
Well, yeah, well,
Right.
I'm glad you got those photos.
Right, well, if he applies too, then we can go back as a site visit and do it then.
Just to get a little more into the area.
Right, right.
Okay.
So I think, and then I found another one today. Somebody called and, this was a house that we permitted, on Tilly Way. Remember all that, he had all the gravel and stuff, big piles of fill.
Is that the one over
before he
near the
started
paving town
building?
line?
Pardon what?
Over near the paving town line?
No, Tilly Way is off of Wing Lane. Wing Lane, Elaine Way, and Tilly.
It was like a trailer,
Hmm.
that had all, he had a big machine, and he had big piles of
Big piles.
stuff, and wasn't there all stone in the front?
Yeah,
All stone,
Okay.
heavy stone in the
I
front.
think we're thinking about the same place, but I guess I'm just putting it in the wrong location.
Okay. So,
It was,
Yeah, and
had big columns on one,
showed me full, huh?
Oh, yeah, I took pictures.
big columns on one end of the house.
There we go.
So, he
That's
did-
before my time.
Yeah, it was a while ago. But no, the big house was up.
All right, so there's the house.
Yeah,
You can
that's-
just scroll through if
okay.
you wanna see.
let's
the-
see.
That's the place I was
see the
thinking of.
elevation. Yeah, it's a nice house, big, high. You have to walk up
Yeah, it's real high up off the ground to start out. It's
To
built
get-
on top of the ground.
yeah,
to get to
no,
the
okay.
stairs. He had to build more stairs, like this fake stairway going to the
Wow.
stairway. It's
So
But-
what's the complaint here?
fill.
I was never at that site.
Oh,
Large amounts of fill. Just like, you can see the piles. In the middle of the yard. I took out his plan, and the wetlands sort of go around the edge, not, like halfway into the lot. But he's like square in the middle of the lot, and there's fill everywhere.
So he's filling wetlands.
including into the wetland.
He looks like he's filling the wetlands, yeah, if he's not, there's no flags up anymore that I could see, because there's nothing up anymore. But,
Do you have any old maps,
I do.
plans that
I
have
the
delineation for
plans.
that property?
Yep, and we can take them out there, I sent him a letter already, he's on the site visit list for the next time. So.
So is that, when you send the letters out, he has to sign for them? Or
No,
whoever?
no, I didn't send it certified, I just sent it
I'm
regular.
not sure, he may, he gets that.
I could send one certified as well, just to make sure he gets it if you
Why
want.
not?
You want it, okay.
Yeah, and you can tell them to send it as certified for our own benefit, just so we know you received it.
Yeah, right.
It's not a reflection on him.
Just wanna make sure that he gets the notice.
Send it by a CYA mail.
I didn't wanna
Yeah,
say that.
exactly.
While we're
But
talking
you
about,
can, Chair.
while you're talking about return receipt requested mail, one of the other things in the Max online magazine was, I guess, Mass DEP, a lot of the forms
Yeah.
you
they
can't
want
do
everything.
online electronically.
No?
Now, that's what the article said. And I guess they want, if you have to do manual forms, Mass DEP, to send to Mass DEP, you should send them return receipt requested. So I guess what I'm basically saying is make sure you have enough money in your budget for next year. You put enough postage money in there to do that. So I'm sure it's not gonna get cheaper next year to mail
No, you're right.
Mail.
You're right, I'm sure. As it is, it's like $8 a letter now, right? Yeah, but,
It's different like the ones we get from these
Right.
projects, because eventually they're making money off of the project.
yeah.
Yeah, I just went to that DEP class back in November, and that was one of the topics they,
That
people
was
were
one of the,
asking
that
about
was one of the things they
are we
mentioned in
required to send it to them
the
certified?
weekly, the
He
monthly
said at this
magazine.
point, no, but it's something that they were discussing,
Hmm.
because we don't send them certified now, but they don't accept email or anything. It has to be mailed, it has to be mailed.
Oh, and it has to be mailed the right day.
Yeah.
If you know, we were hanging on to things that Kathy next door goes to DEP physically, like once every 2 weeks or something. So we were just giving them to her to turn in when she got there. They called us and said, don't do that. You have to absolutely send it to us the day you send it out. So that they could start the appeal period, you know, right away.
Nice. Okay. All right, what else you got for us?
But I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it, just the violations.
Okay.
How about the winter or spring,
February.
this is spring
MACC,
conference.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, the
More
spring
stuff.
conference, you guys wanna come?
I think so.
What was the date again?
It's, February
29th.
Yeah, leap year.
Leap day,
Leap day.
leap day, yeah. Uh-oh, somebody's birthday.
No, I thought the 20, that weekend or something, but I don't know, 28, 29.
Already got it on there.
I think I will.
Cool.
I'd only be able to go to half of it.
Where are you gonna be?
Well, I mean, I did something to do that night, and I get tickets for it and all that, so,
Oh.
yeah, I need to make sure that I'm there.
Yeah, I'll email you guys the little packets that have the workshop and
Okay.
stuff on them. so
Yeah,
you
it'll
know.
be on the website.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Joanne and I are gonna do an Excel class
Oh, cool.
on the 28th and the 29th of January, so we won't be
Sign this
everybody in
with
the
Ted,
office.
Okay.
Thursday
Sign
night.
up
The Tuesday,
They
Wednesday.
may not up there?
Yeah. I mean,
on.
that's
After you
the
sign
meeting that
up.
day.
Yeah.
Birthday.
Oh, that's right.
Somebody sketched something in there.
Yeah, that's true. There's a meeting that night, so
You went and you did
No,
fill
no.
up?
Ted's absent.
Oh,
You're
No.
here.
oh.
It's this one above you, Nick?
No, she wasn't here the last meeting.
So Mary Lee,
This
these,
is,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
it's in
sorry.
a, yeah, above.
Ed was here.
It was
You
above.
weren't here. I don't think you were
She
here.
was- no.
Oh,
All right,
Mary Lee, these images, will this be, is there a file started for this? Or will it
Yeah,
be filed there?
yeah, I'll
It's
start
stripped
it.
out, yeah.
I haven't, but
True.
any motion to adjourn? Will somebody make that?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
yes, you can sign.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 6:55.